Rajdeep, I'll bring you in. The likes of Rajiv Shukla, I think this will be his third term where Rajya Sabha is concerned. Pramod Tiwari, what is they actually that they bring to the table when you have, on the other hand, a Pawan Khera who goes out every night in TV studios, takes the party line, fights for it. Shouldn't you have rewarded people like that?
You know, the more things change, the more they remain the same, or bad habits die hard. A lot of these decisions, had they been taken when the Congress was in power and was a dominant party, would have been accepted. The problem with the Congress is that they are acting in the opposition like they would act in power. As they would act in power. You see, when you are in power, you can distribute largesse. You can bring in a Rajiv Shukla as an old family loyalist. You can have a Pramod Tiwari because he's been a long-serving Brahmin face of the Congress in UP. You can bring in an Imran Pratapgarhi as this young Muslim Urdu poet face. All of this can be done when you are in power. When you are in power, you have more Rajya Sabha seats to distribute, and you can distribute the loaves and fishes of office in a way to those who are seen as loyalists. When you are in the opposition, you have to galvanize your cadre, you have to energize them, you have to give them a feeling that we are in the fight. What is the sense you are giving to Maharashtra? The one state which has traditionally been a Congress state, one seat there, you give it to an Imran Pratapgarhi. It effectively suggests to the Maharashtra Congress or the likes of Milind Deora, none of you are good enough. Number two, when you do it in Rajasthan, a state which you desperately need to win next year, the one large North Indian state that you still have to you, and you give all three to so-called outsiders. When you do that in Chhattisgarh, another state where you're in for a fight next year. You see, all of this could have been excused if you are in government. When you're in the opposition, you need to function differently. And I believe the biggest problem the Congress has faced in the last 8 years is they haven't reconciled the fact that they are in the opposition and facing the Modi juggernaut who isn't going anywhere. They seem to believe Mr. Modi is Morarji Desai, who will suddenly one day be defeated by the people and the Congress will return because of anti-incumbency. It's not happening. Who out of these faces excites you? I can understand that you needed in a way a Chidambaram, even though the party had said that you would have one person, one family would only be in one elected post, but Mr. Chidambaram brings the weight of his knowledge as finance minister. Jairam Ramesh is important because he understands parliamentary practices. But if you are going to then fill your ranks only with those who are seen as loyalists, then you have a problem. I can understand a Rajdeep Surjewala who's been working tirelessly as party spokesperson, to some extent Ajay Makan getting it, but there will be questions over some of the others, and you could argue that does the Congress have talent? I would like to believe it does. You spoke about a generational change, that 50% of the seats will be for those below 50. Where is that? I don't think there is maybe Imran Pratapgarhi may be under 50, but the rest certainly are not. And is he really your so-called Muslim? This traditional politics has to change to effect a new kind of politics which can enable you to win elections.
Rahul Shrivastava, I'll bring you in on this because this whole change that the Congress promised during the Chintan Shivir, what happens in terms of representation? What about caste? What about class? What about gender? Because it is everything that the Congress decided that they're going to do. The list smacks everything against what that decision was in Udaipur.
Preeti, that's what I said. This list has not been drawn with elections and politics of the future. It has nothing to do with it. It is largely addressing the internal dynamics of the Congress party. Say, for example, the BJP did well in UP because of the OBC and the Dalit shift in favor of the party, or the larger number of women who have voted for the BJP. So out of the 22, 6 of them are women, 11 of them are OBC and Dalits. So the BJP is sending out a clear signal that if we have had a certain affiliation with certain caste group or demographic groups, we are backing them and we are trying to show that we stay committed to them. The Congress is basically, when Sonia Gandhi had said recently that this party has given many people a lot of things, this is the payback time. This is exactly the crisis, that the Congress is yet again creating a set of leaders who are not leaders of tomorrow. They are leaders of yesterday, so that the present of the Congress High Command can be protected. And that is why one can say that the Congress will achieve nothing but protecting that inner core of the party through this election, while the BJP is preparing leaders for tomorrow, it is addressing demographic constituencies, and the BJP is preparing for elections in the future.
You know, I'm going to just take final comments there, and Rajdeep, I'll begin with you. And the question I want to ask you is the BJP now very clear that they don't even want to hide behind that fig leaf of having maybe one representation where the minority face is concerned? Because the Uttar Pradesh cabinet, ultimately they did get in somebody, you know, for one of the cabinet posts. Are they now completely shorn off it because Muslims don't vote for the party? Why give them representation?
I still believe that the BJP will find a way to accommodate some minority face in the cabinet. I would like to believe that they will do that. I think there is an element you could argue of tokenism, but the BJP will try at least to ensure that. Look, when you talk of social engineering, I think while OBCs and Dalits get primacy today in the BJP's worldview, there will always be some space kept by the party for the minorities. I think the bigger picture is simply this, Preeti, of this, that the BJP looks at everything from political cost benefit, looking at the next election. The Congress is looking at, as Rahul rightly said, how can we keep our inner party dynamics intact? How can we ensure that everyone who is restive is in some way placated or not? And those who are out will perhaps now look for other pastures even within the Congress.
Well, Anand Sharma is one which is being talked about. But Rahul, you know, talking about the BJP's choice here or not picking a Muslim face, at least till now, what happens to that whole Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas? Because somewhere down the line, if you've completely shown off that right now, you're accepting that it is not Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas.
See, Preeti, as when you say a fig leaf, you have an LGP member of parliament who is part of the NDA, who is from the minority community. But I agree with Rajdeep. Mr. Naqvi, it's difficult to edge Mr. Naqvi or a minority member as a trophy case from the government, primarily because of the fact that it look awfully shoddy if you have the Minority Affairs Ministry headed by a majority member. So one thing is very clear, there will be somebody from the minority community holding that portfolio. It has never happened that the minority ministry has gone to somebody from the majority community. But the word also is that Mr. Naqvi is critical for the BJP because he's a talking voice. When an Owaisi attacks the BJP, the counter comes from a Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi. And in that, Naqvi is a much more efficient talker than a Zafar Islam. Both are good friends, but definitely Naqvi has an edge. He has got political experience, and also experience in the Rajya Sabha is a very critical thing. Remember, he is the deputy leader of the party in the upper house. And that is why I will say that don't write off Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi yet. Maybe June 23rd by-poll, and also perhaps in the early part of 2023, he can make an entry back into the Rajya Sabha.
Well, tokenism at that, but as contrived as it may sound, even in Uttar Pradesh, they did bring in a minority face to head the minority affairs portfolio there. But, Mr. Kidwai, where the Congress is concerned, sir, all that was discussed in the Chintan Shivar, because if you look at all the pointers that came out from Udaipur, one of them was Dalits, caste, would be gender representation. We haven't seen any of that in this particular list.
That's once again I'm saying this is that communication gap I've been talking about and optics. You see, all those measures have been taken. That is for the future. It was not meant for Rajya Sabha elections. And in Rajya Sabha elections, the political party like Congress, they reward. I keep saying task force for 2024. These people need, a house in New Delhi. They need to travel on that kind of, free of expenses, etc. And of course, a recognition of their hard work. You may mock them, you may this thing, but a political party acts on its soldiers. Mr. Sardesai went on naming 5-6 people as, as good, as utility people. Then who are we left with? Imran is also a campaigner, so I don't have much problem with that, because in the present day Congress, whoever you bring, and there will be another set of people who will be criticizing it. And this is very much there. But the Congress' biggest problem is, why not Surjewala from Haryana? Why not Mukul Vasnik from home state of Maharashtra? These are the things that Congress has really missed it, and there is no explanation.
Because Surjewala not from Haryana, Rajdeep, would cause a lot of people, especially like Ms. Kumari Shelja, to feel slighted.
those can't be reasons. You already have a situation even in Haryana where there is a danger of cross-voting now because an extra candidate has been put. You have a danger in Rajasthan where if a Subhash Goyal contest, Subhash Chandra contest, you will have the danger of cross-voting. It's not that. I come back to it. When the Congress was in power, you could accommodate all your loyalists in the Rajya Sabha, make them ministers. When you're in government, you have to think differently. You have to think politics, elections, winning back the voter. And this list may not be able to achieve that.
All right.